I think I've made my point. Rlcraft is hard and you will die a lot. But you probably know that already, so Day 1. After having experienced my first death within 20 seconds upon entering the world, I immediately got to see one of these new biomes that Rlcraft brings. I'm starting to understand why people say that everything wants to kill you here. I have been killed by a fish and now I'm being hurt by bushes. And as soon as I get out of that predicament, I suffer from hypothermia. I can't even wield the armor I find. And soon thereafter, I lose a battle against a pixel and begin my third life with the rectal exam. And after wandering for a day, I hope I can find some shelter in this castle. But I have a feeling that I'm not very welcome here, as I'm soon greeted by a guarding lion. So I decided to take a safe walk around the castle instead. Well, it was as safe as Rlcraft can be. And of course, out of the frying pan into the fire. I am now greeted by an armored guardian that seems to be in cahoots with this bird. Because out of all of the places the bird could have dropped me, it dropped me straight into cobweb. Unfair. I didn't know that mobs have battle tactics. But for some reason, it decided to pick me up again. And this time, I made sure to end it. Now it's only me and the skeleton. But of course, as soon as I believe I have a chance, in comes a witch. Not only does the witch poison me, it also heals the skeleton. And soon thereafter, I begin my fourth life. It wasn't long until I found a stairway down on the ground, but I quickly realized that the only thing that I'm going to find down here is death. So I decided to cry myself to sleep in a dirt hole instead. But this is Rlcraft, and in Rlcraft, you are never safe. Not only did I get the most hair-raising message I have ever received, I'm also attacked by something that comes straight out of my darkest nightmares. And soon, I enter my fifth life. Thankfully, the dirt hole had done its job, as the break of dawn warms my face in this cold and cruel world. I quickly climb up on a tree to get a better vantage point of where I am, and that is when I get to see even more nightmares. You know, I actually regret changing my settings so I can see what it actually looks like. But thankfully, there is some luck, as I see a floating boat down in the river. Now, you could say I'm a complete noob at Rlcraft, and you would be right. This is the first time I've ever played it, but I have also watched other players play this game before, so I have a very basic understanding of what I can find in this game. This boat, for instance, contains beds, which means I can sleep and set my spawn. No longer will I die and get randomly transported over the world. And while I was waiting for night to fall, I made a convenient bridge. If I'm going to use this boat as a home, I now no longer need to swim back and forth. I also thought I should go and check out a nearby tower and maybe get some good loot, but I quickly changed my mind as I heard something growl. To this day, I still don't know what that was, and I wasn't going to stick around to find out, as the odds of it killing me are very high. And so, at the end of day 2, I can finally start progressing, without having to worry about losing all of my stuff. In the morning of day 3, I immediately got to work exploring the area around my new home. If there is anything I've learned from watching others, it's to pillage loot from wherever you can find it. At the top of the tower, for instance, can bring lots of diamonds and gold. While being protected by a lot of mobs and a very dangerous boss mob, it's still worth the effort. But I gotta say, the gods smiled in my favor on day 3, as there was a ton of loot here, as well as guardians and housing. And after looting for a while, I decided to make this my home. On day 4, I basically only spent time gathering resources, so I can finally start getting some tools. But it's not even wood tools, it's flint tools. And on day 5, I finally managed to make an axe. But gathering wood had to wait, as I got a very odd visitor. I have no idea how it got there, but it's basically half stuck inside my house. I must say, this is very bad. From my understanding, most mobs in this game want to kill you, though there are rare exceptions. And so I decided to test it out to see how dangerous it was. It does shoot at me, but it doesn't seem to do anything. So I figured it might be one of those healing mobs, which is comfortable to know. I will now get healed when I'm inside my house. And so, with my safety confirmed, I got back to gathering resources. Sadly though, the healing boy got loose, which meant I probably should capture him. Having a healer in my base is very good. What? Okay, apparently he's not a healing boy. He's apparently a mighty boy and he makes you burn. It was a bit too strong for me to kill him, but at least I got my stuff back. So I got back to work a safe distance away. And I kept doing that for all of day 6, but on day 7 it was high time for an adventure. Honestly, it didn't take long until I started seeing structures. These things are everywhere. I also found this strange stone hedge. Now I'm not dumb, I realized I was standing on gravel, but whoever made this must have been playing 4D chess, as there was no way I could see this coming. Now, I was quite certain that my items had despawned, so I made myself some new tools, and then ventured back as soon as I could on day 8. And I was quite thankful to see that none of my items had despawned. I also made sure to destroy the spawners and start leveling up my character. For any redstoners out there, you can't make farms out of spawners in Rlcraft. And since I do a lot of technical stuff like building farms, I decided to level up my farm. Hopefully I will not come to regret that. On day 10, I continued my adventure, as well as starting to get a closer look on this tower. The sooner I get my hands on this loot, the sooner I can progress. I tried to leave my home on day 11, but every time I went outside, I got attacked. And just when I thought that the village defenses finally did something about the mob infestation, the mobs actually made a fusion and left me to fight one of these mighty boys again. It wasn't until day 13 that I finally was able to raid the tower. Actually, I was not able to raid all of it. Instead, I took my time, going through one floor at a time. It was on day 15 that I realized that thinking outside the box is usually a very good idea, and I took that personally. Now, instead of fighting my way up floor by floor, I can cheese the system and get all the loot with as little fighting as possible. But you see, fighting outside the comfort of walls has its own problems. When returning on day 16, I get another encounter with my nightmares. I have no idea what that is, and I have no intentions of finding out. But soon after, I was back to conquering the tower. But I soon realized on day 17 that I am getting closer and closer to the top, which also means that in a not so distant future, I'm going to have to fight the boss mob. And I happen to know a way to cheese the system. But to do that, I need to approach the boss mob without being inside the tower. If I'm too close inside the tower, he will activate and start killing me, which is a rather less than ideal solution. So I began working on a staircase up to him. But as you can see, that was a lot easier said than done. But on day 18 it was finally time. Basically how this works is that the golem is locked in place, and every time you move him you build up speed. So if you use a fishing rod a few times, you can essentially send him to the moon. And of course, because I have never done this before, it went without any problems whatsoever. Oh well, at the very least on day 19 I managed to kill my first mighty boy, which was quite an accomplishment, as they have been harassing me for quite some time now. You can tell that I was desperate to get that golem out of there, so I kept trying for a few days. All of my work defeated by a 1-block high netherrack wall. Eventually, on day 21, I finally accepted fate. I wasn't going to be able to get the loot this golem was guarding, so I decided to only loot the lower parts of the tower. And I continued doing that on day 22, as I hadn't fully cleared out the tower yet. On day 24, it had come to my attention that there is a tool that is extremely useful in the early stages of Rlcraft. You only need sticks and iron. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I present you the Paxel. This tool can easily mine wood and stone, as well as shoveling dirt, without ever losing any durability. I don't know about you, but I call that a very good deal. So on day 25, I finally made myself a mine. On day 26, one of my darkest nightmares decided to make a very flashy entrance. I now have even more reasons to sleep every single night, because apparently I can't block his attacks, and he destroys the world. And on day 27, I decided to make a sugarcane farm. Having a decent supply of paper and sugar is usually not a bad idea. And on day 28, I learned something very important. You get a lot of experience from harvesting crops. Now, it might not seem much now, but imagine if you have an entire field, and then combine that with a perk that makes crops grow faster near you, as well as getting more experience from harvesting crops. And on day 29, I thought it's high time to start exploring that other tower that I saw before. This is also when I learned that the Paxil is actually a very good weapon as well. This made me extremely confident. I finally stand a chance. Come here, you peasant mobs. Your rule of terror is over. I challenge thee to battle. On guard! No. Wait. I refuse to give up. I can do this. After experiencing that death, I wasn't able to play the game for 5 days. But eventually I mustered up the courage to return, and I immediately started running back to the tower. After getting my revenge on that zombie, I finally started working my way through the floors, which turned out to be quite easy. You know, when you don't have any pesky Minecraft gods that sentence you to death by lightning. After that, I got to work clearing the lower parts of the tower. If you let daylight in through the floors, the mob spawners are unable to spawn in more mobs. This was an easy tower without any boss, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be careless. After all, I am a man of research and preparation. However, little did I know that I was in for quite the experience. Now, I am aware that the Blood Moon is very much a thing in other mod packs, but I was unaware that it is in Rlcraft as well. But seeing that Crimson Moon made me realize what horrible situation I have found myself in. And of course, it didn't take long until I put myself in danger. I managed to survive most of the night, but eventually I met my end. Nothing interesting happened on day 31, but on day 32, I finally expanded my storage. On day 34, I found that I'm very close to an ocean. This made me think it's high time I do a bit of exploring around my base. What if I find some very good loot, for instance? And indeed it was. I found a game changer. Chickens. Chickens on their own aren't very valuable, but if you use chickens and bones, you can get something that is called avian treats. And using those treats, you can tame an animal that can fly, which only means I can finally start making farms. First, I dug out a pen for the chickens in my cellar, as well as a small wheat farm where I can get the seeds to feed the chickens. It wasn't until day 47 that I finally experienced another death. I really should stick to farming, as whenever I venture out, I die. But apparently I like dying, because I found a village on day 52 when I was out exploring, which means I also now have access to a second waystone. I also found some armor under one of the houses, but I severely underestimated how fast you drown. There was also a very nice castle in this village. I might make this my home in the future, but that will be a project for another day. When I continued exploring, not only did I find a tower, I also found something that resembles a clock tower. I decided to investigate the clock tower, but naturally it could only end in one way. And it was on the night of day 54 that I had my biggest milestone yet. Taming a rock. I have finally achieved flight. No longer will I have to suffer the mobs on the ground. And as you can see, I wasted no time exploiting my new friend. And seeing the loot put a tear in my eye. This has been a long time coming. And in the morning of day 56, I made sure that I will never lose my newfound pet. For those of you that don't know, this is a soul stone. And if I use this soul stone on my pet will never truly die. Because if it does die, it is now possible for me to just resummon it. And having made sure my pet is safe, I immediately returned to the tower. I started testing out my new summoning staff. And I gotta say, that is some scary teamwork. It took a few days to raid the tower, but eventually on day 58 I had finally conquered my first tower. But it was also around this time I started facing a new problem: the cold. Winter is coming, and I am underprepared. And because of my inexperience in Rlcraft, I didn't take winter as seriously as I should have. And so instead of preparing, I started moving out to the castle. The house had done its job, but I was in need of a bigger area. And this is basically all I did until day 60. And aside from dying once on day 61, all I really did was sorting out my stuff. But on day 62, it was finally time to explore using my bird. Traversing the area and looting towers is going to be very easy now that I get access to wings. Well, at least that is what I thought. I quickly learned that these sirens are a pest in the ocean, but I gotta say, it's very fun to explore in Rlcraft. I mean, look at this, random floating castle in the middle of nowhere. I also saw my first dragon, but I know dragons mean instant death, so I made sure to get out of there as soon as I possibly could. I was still exploring on day 63 when I found a giant's nest. I also decided to test its strength using my summons, but to see him actually eat one of my summons was highly discouraging. So I decided to leave him alone and yeet a golem into oblivion instead. You know, I don't think I'm ever going to get used to seeing this good loot. It's gonna be hard to return to vanilla Minecraft. But then again, I do miss my redstone. On day 64, I wanted to explore this temple that was very close to my base. Naturally, I didn't forget to die at least once to properly introduce myself. A quick death seems to be the standard greeting here in these parts of the town. And I can't be showing a discourteous side when I'm greeting the new neighbors. Eventually, I explored the bottom floor of the temple. I'm still not quite sure what I encountered down here, so I will leave it to you to figure that out. Nope, I'm not having that. Nope, 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 hell no. Day 71 I felt I still need more loot, and there is only one way to fix that problem: raiding towers. And so I set out on another adventure. And do you remember when I said winter is coming? Well, winter is here, and this brought a lot of problems. And my adventure soon became a search for heat sources instead. But eventually, like all things in Rlcraft, the cold won and took my life. Winter had come, which made it increasingly harder to stay alive. Now, normally in a game, you usually die less the longer you have played it. But this is Rlcraft. And in Rlcraft, you die more the longer you play. It wasn't until day 75 that I finally had the clothes needed to regain my items. Any attempt to fly without wool clothing always ended with me freezing to death. Hypothermia isn't a joke in Rlcraft. Honestly, it got so bad that whenever I started getting freeze damage, all I could do was just take off my armor and await death, so I can get a few extra minutes when I'm not freezing. Now you might think that is a very bad situation, and I agree, it was a very bad situation. However, Rlcraft wasn't done yet. You see, Rlcraft wants you to suffer, and so the Minecraft gods decided to pull a prank on me in the middle of my desperation.
Tsunami! Brave the storm!
A personal message from the Minecraft gods themselves. Now, what does this lovely message mean? It means mobs. Lots of mobs. Of course it does. Would you expect anything less by now? Eventually I realized that there is probably a good way to get rid of the freezing problem, and apparently there is. Well, at least in your home, without the need of having to build 1,000 campfires. And to find this solution I need to visit the Nether. Such a relaxing trip. No longer will I have to suffer the freezing temperatures of the overworld. But jokes aside, I spent the next few days running in, placing a few dirt blocks, die, and repeat. Okay, I think you get the point. I died a few times, but my work paid off. Just about every time I went in, my safety tunnel got a little bit longer, and eventually I reached the wall. Now, there was nothing that could stop me from getting my magma cubes. Why do I need magma cubes? There is an item in Rlcraft that is called a heating coil that supplies endless amount of heat to your base, which means no more freezing. And on day 83 I was finally free. No longer will I die in my own home, and it will also allow me to make shorter trips outside my base. Freedom at last. I have died 70 times thus far. I wonder what the score is on day 100. But first, we need to get there. So, in order to get there, I started raiding towers again. And of course, it wouldn't be a proper raid if I didn't die at least once. On day 85, I did something I should have done a long time ago. Making a season clock. Knowing the seasons would have helped me a lot, or at least that is what I believe. At the end of day 85, I checked out this building that is very close to the tower that I am currently raiding. If there is a bed in there, I can sleep and set my spawn closer. That way I don't have to travel such a long distance every time I die. Of course. On day 87, I decided I want to expand my horizons even more. And I did so by yeeting another golem into oblivion. And after a quick raid, I decided to test out these recall potions. Yes, I do believe I can get used to instant travel home. Also, I should probably say this. There is no way you're getting me to do 200 days. The suffering is real, but I'll be fair. If you give this video 1,000 likes, I will suffer for your entertainment. I have a feeling I might regret that. When day 90 arrived, I yeeted another golem, stole the best loot he had, and simply flew around to see the sights. Flying around in Rlcraft will never cease to amaze me. There are all kinds of structures, traps, temples, and even dungeons. I was so fascinated by all of it that on day 92, I simply picked a direction away from my base and went in a straight line. Let us see what this world has to offer. It was on day 95 that I found something very interesting. A stranded sea serpent. The sea serpents are strong indeed, but I don't have a lot of health. So as I saw my chance, I immediately took it. Redstoners for the win! When I started this series, I never imagined being able to defeat one. And of course, that victory happiness didn't last long, as I drowned not once, but twice, in an effort to regain my items. On day 98, I flew around my territory, reminiscing about the days that has been. I barely knew a thing when I started this world. I died all the time, and failed at almost everything. And I'm glad to see that nothing has changed. I still don't know anything. I die even more now for some reason. I also also lost all of my stuff fighting a sea serpent. But as I approached the first tower that I ever tried to raid, I remember that the golem is still alive. So what if I try to beat him before day 100? And so I had my task: defeat the golem once and for all. Let's end this series with a victory that shall never be forgotten. Day 99 is here and time is running out. Let's do this! I have long been awaiting this moment. Nothing shall stop me today. And so, the golem was defeated. Thank you for watching my 100 days. If you liked the video, leave a like and have a good one.